If you want to learn more about the DJI Osmo Action Cam, then stay tuned. This video is for you. I've been looking for ways to augment my YouTube videos with various action sequences, and I've been looking for a camera to assist in that effort. Now, years ago, I did use a GoPro HERO, and I just wasn't too impressed with the technology at that time. I've also done a lot of research and development in regards to drone technology. Now, I did this well before drones are what we know of drones today. And since that time, DJI came to the forefront, and they really cornered that market and did a great job, in my opinion. Well, recently, DJI released their own action camera. Now, I looked at the specifications of this camera, and I was itching to get my hands on it and put it through the paces, thinking this might really help me out. Like I do with my other videos, I want to start off by level setting with you. I have a nice sunny day here. We're going to have some clouds move in and all that good stuff. And I also have a list of notes here. Now, I use these notes to help keep me on point. And here's how it's going to play out. I'm going to start off by identifying what I feel are some important specifications of this camera. And then I'm going to get into the demo. Now, keeping in mind, this is an action camera, so that demo is really going to consist of a lot of video. The cool thing about this is it can also take pictures though, and it can take them in RAW. So I'm going to grab some pictures with this as well. Now, when the demo is done, I'm going to give you a few final thoughts on this camera. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump right into the specifications. I'm going to apologize ahead of time because I'm going to look away from this camera occasionally to, again, reference my notes to ensure I stay on point with these specifications. This camera weighs in at 124 grams, which is just over 1/4 of a pound. Now, it really does feel solid in the hands. It doesn't feel like it's going to break apart or fall apart by any stretch. The field of view here is 145 degrees with a fixed aperture of f2.8. The ISO range is from 100 to 3200, and that's for both video and photos. The sensor measures 1/2.3 inches at 12 megapixels, resulting in an image resolution of 4000 by 3000 pixels. It has a built-in self-timer that you can configure to take a shot at 1 second, 2, 3, 5, or 10 seconds. It also has built-in time-lapse capabilities that you can configure to take a shot every half a second, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 seconds, and then it jumps to 8, 9, 10, and then it jumps to 13, 15, 20, and 30 seconds. Now, those are a lot of options right there, but keep in mind that we do not have the ability to dynamically set up the duration of the time lapse itself, so that's probably why DJI gave us so many options here. Now, when it comes to the battery rating, what DJI is telling us is this: if you want the maximum capability out of this battery, you would set it up to shoot 1080p at 30 frames a second with RockSteady disabled, and that should yield approximately 135 minutes of video. Now, you might be saying, what is RockSteady? Well, that's DJI's capability to do video stabilization within the camera, and when you have it enabled, it does consume some battery. Now, DJI tells us if you want to know what's going to consume the most battery, you would set it up to shoot 4K at 60 frames a second with RockSteady enabled, and that should yield approximately 63 minutes of video. So your mileage is going to vary here. It's going to go anywhere from 63 minutes all the way up to 135 minutes, and it really just depends on the configurations of this camera. Just something to keep in mind here. Now, it will take approximately 90 minutes to fully charge the battery. The camera is capable, again, of shooting 4K at 60 frames a second, 50, 48, 30, 25, and 24. It can also do the same at 2.7K. Now, it will obviously shoot at 1080p, and it will do so at 240 frames a second, 200 frames a second, 120, 100, 60, 50, 48, 30, 25, and 24. You have a lot of options here in the 1080p space, with the most impressive being, in my opinion, the 240, because that is super slow-mo, and that's going to be really cool here. Now, it can also shoot 720p, but it'll only do so at 240 frames and at 200. It won't do anything else in there. Now, it has the ability to do HDR video. Now, I do a lot of post-processing with my videos, so if I want to enhance the color, I'll do so there. but you can do so in the camera here, and that's what the HDR is all about. It can do that when you're shooting 4K, 2.7K, or 1080p, and it will do all three of those at 30 frames a second, 25, or 24. Now, when it comes to the photos, this will shoot in JPEG, but it will also shoot in RAW, and I'm really looking forward to that. Now, the RAW format here is DNG, and so it makes it nice to have that capability, in my opinion. That is all I have for the specifications, so let's take a look at the demo. What better way to start a demo than at the golf course? Here we are, I'm inside my golf cart with a handful of clubs behind me. Now, it's not that I'm great at golf. Matter of fact, I kind of stink at it, but I enjoy the game. If you're local to the area, I'm at a place called River Glen Country Club. Now, they've done a great job out here. They've overhauled the course, and it really looks nice. Now, I want you to know I'm shooting this portion of the video on the DJI. I'm in 1080p at 60 frames a second with RockSteady enabled, and I also have the Dwarping enabled. And I'm also using the built-in microphone on the camera itself. Now we're going to get underway, and I'm going to do so right now, and it's going to be a test of the RockSteady capabilities in the camera itself, along with the microphone's ability to cancel out the wind noise, because as we get going in the cart, which I'm going to do right now, we're going to get some wind on this camera. Now I'm going to talk for just a few moments about the demo itself. It's kind of late in the day, and I expect this demo is going to run over the next few days. I'm not 100% sure of what I'm going to do just yet, but I assure you one thing, we're going to put this camera through the paces. Now again, I'm going to start off at the driving range. I'm going to play some holes out here, and I might try to find a pool because it's summertime and it's awfully hot. So with all that said, let's just jump right in and have some fun.
I know you live every day like it's your last. Please slow down, 'cause life can move faster than your wild heart can catch. When you can't see the truth you surround, follow the light that speaks through your soul. Chaos has turned your white clouds to dark gray, and you taste the tears in the rain. And I know you have all the strength to find your way as you teach the world to be brave. Follow the light that speaks through your eyes, even stronger every time that you cry. Your eyes, even stronger every time that you cry. I know you're true. You know it too. So fight your way back. Get them demons off your back. I know you're true. You know it too. but he won the fight that night. For the story goes that the bears barely fared at all. Oh, I see tomorrow the man on his tread, soaked in bear's blood with three severed heads. Three severed heads. Oh, I see forever a man far from home, learning to live on his own. On his own.
I've enjoyed reviewing this Osmo Action camera. Now keeping in mind, I spent the better part of 2 weeks putting this camera through the paces, and I finished up with a handful of those night shots. Now I did use a small little tripod. I shot in RAW with just a little bit of post-processing. Now along the way, like I typically do, I took a handful of notes right here. I listed out all the good and perhaps the not so good. Now I'm going to apologize ahead of time again because I'm going to be looking down to reference these notes just to ensure I stay on point. With all that said, let's go ahead and jump into what I feel is good about this camera. I'm going to start off by stating one of the most obvious benefits to this camera, and that is the dual screens. Now DJI is the first company to release a forward-facing screen on an action camera of this caliber. The front screen may not be touch sensitive, but it's great to ensure proper composition, and that's what this is really all about in my opinion. Now the back screen here is silky smooth to the touch, and it's very similar to that of any current smartphone. So if you use an iPhone or an Android device and you go to touch the screen, it's very similar here. Navigating through the menu system is just very responsive, and I've had no issues with it. It just works great. Now this camera also features a dual locking battery slot. You must intentionally release both locks to release the battery. The battery's locked in place and it doesn't feel like it would easily fall out. It's just solid and I like it. Now it has a quick switch button on the side. I really like this as well. It's labeled QS and it's located in the upper left when facing forward. This can be customized to your liking, but by default it's set to video, HDR, slow-mo, time-lapse, and photo. It offers the ability to quickly switch modes, and it works well. I found this very useful throughout the demo. So for example, when I was shooting some regular video, 1080p at 60 frames a second, and I wanted to switch over to slow-mo or photo, I would just hit the quick switch button on the side, and it would get me right there. I didn't have to fumble through any cumbersome menu systems or anything like that. It's just a great little feature, and it works well in my opinion. Now I also found that the menu system on the back of this camera is very intuitive. Now there's 4 main swipes. Now if you swipe down, you get the menu system. If you swipe up, you get all the configurations. And if you swipe to the left, you get to all the settings themselves. And if you swipe right, you get playback. Now the main menu offers 8 options. The first, you can save custom configurations to the quick switch menu. The second is brightness for the back screen, which can be nice if you want to save some of the battery, etc. Now the third is the screen lock. This is nice so you don't inadvertently touch anything on the back screen when you have the camera on. The fourth is settings, which when selected offers 17 additional options. Now those are a bunch, and I won't step through each one, but I will call attention to a few, like the voice control. Now this allows you to switch language and also see a list of voice commands. You also have a snapshot and you have wind noise reduction. These are nice. There's also rotating control. By default this is set to auto, but you can force it up or down. Next up is spot metering. This is nice if you have a subject that you're trying to record some video or take a photo of and they're silhouetted by a bright scene. You can simply touch that area on the screen and the camera will do the rest. Next up is voice control. You can turn this on and off. Now this is a nice feature. If you have it on, you can start recording, stop recording. You can shut the camera off if you want. Now last but not least is the front screen, and you can select if you want it filled or if you want to keep the aspect ratio. I like the aspect ratio because, again, it helps with the composition, and that's just what I prefer. Now the configuration options and the feature settings will vary depending on the mode that you're in. When you're in video mode, you have the option to choose the resolution, frame rate, and RockSteady in configurations, and auto or manual controls in the settings. If selecting manual, you can control the ISO and the shutter speed. Additional settings will allow you to control the white balance, color, and whether or not you want dwarping turned on or off. Now in the photo mode, you have the option to choose the aspect ratio and countdown timer in the configurations and the image format in the settings. When in slow-mo mode, you have the option to choose 1080p or 720p and 8x slow-mo, which is 240 frames a second, or 4x slow-mo, which is 120 frames a second. Now another benefit to this camera right here is the removable filter. I really like this idea as well. The lens filter can be replaced with various ND filters, which are nice to reduce the light if needed to capture various shots or videos. If you're in a really bright light situation, that's really what that's all about. Another benefit to this camera is the dwarping. I really like this as well. Boeing's expected with a super wide angle, and DJI did a great job to counter this effort, resulting in a relatively straight video and photos. So if you select dwarping, the camera will handle that, and it's just nice. It's all built in. Another benefit to this camera is the waterproofing. I really like this here because you don't need a separate housing to make that happen like some of the older GoPros where you needed that. Now I know the newer GoPro, you don't need a separate housing for it, but it's just nice that DJI, when they came out with this camera, by default, it's waterproof, and that's awesome. Now DJI rates this camera safe to 11 meters, and although I didn't approach 11 meters, I had no issues or concerns during my demo work. So it just works really well, and I love the fact it's waterproof. Another benefit here is the RockSteady feature. Now I really like this here. I put this camera through the paces and was very impressed with the results. The camera was shaking all over the place when I was on the bike and I was walking or I was in the car. And I'm telling you, watching this thing, the camera was doing this. It was just all over, and I thought the resulting video is not going to be usable, or bare minimum, I'm going to have to get into post-processing and really try to stabilize this. But I didn't have to do that at all. All the video you see in the demo, I didn't touch it as far as stabilization, didn't do anything with it. You're just seeing it straight out of the camera. RockSteady is just that. It's RockSteady, and it works great. Now, what's the not so good about this camera? Well, to begin with, the charging port. So the charging port's hidden behind a relatively cumbersome cover that's located on the lower left side when facing forward. You need to push in on the button and slide to the bottom. You might be able to do this with one hand, but I had to use both hands. And the door can easily pop off as well, and this requires some finagling to get it back on. Although it's not a huge issue, I feel DJI could do a little better in this area, so we'll see what version 2 looks like, but I find that to be just kind of a little dig. That's all. Battery life. So the battery life is on par with other action cameras, and this camera lives up to DJI claims. I don't have any problem with that at all. I just found myself needing more batteries. If you use this camera a lot, then expect to grab some additional batteries. So for example, if you use it and you find yourself down to like 15 or 20 minutes and you want to do an extended time lapse, you're probably going to want a full battery to start that. Or you can get yourself a USB battery bank, something like that, and that should work out well. So one last notable is about the photos. Now, the photos are fine with good light. Just keeping in mind that this is a relatively small sensor. The sensor inside this camera right here is about the same size as that found in a smartphone. And it's actually the same size as the sensor that's found in the Panasonic P1000, which I recently did a review on. I'll post a link in the description below if you're interested in that. But I find that kind of interesting. So when you go to take shots that require a higher ISO, that's where this struggles a bit. Now I took a handful of those night shots and I forced the ISO down to 100 and put this on a tripod, and I think some of those shots actually turned out really well, so that worked okay. But just know that if you have to take some shots with a higher ISO, the images aren't going to look that good. But keeping in mind, this really isn't meant to be a photo-based camera. This is all about the video. So that is about all I have. Just a couple things I want to mention real quick. When I was walking around with this camera, I was using my Joby Gorilla Pod here. Now this is a little bit big, but it worked great. I was able to put this in this little contraption on the end here, and I would walk around just like this. And the camera's moving, you know, and the RockSteady's doing its thing, and it worked well. I'll post a link as to where you can get this Joby Gorilla Pod as well if you're interested. One last notable is that when I did the car scene in the demo, I used this right here. Now this is just a suction cup mount, and this is actually meant for a smartphone, but I was able to wedge this in here, and it worked well. Now keeping in mind, as I mentioned before, this thing was shaking all around. But this did a great job with the RockSteady just to keep everything in place. Now, if you were to ask me, what do I think? Would I get this right here? Absolutely. Now, it currently lists for $350, and as I mentioned at the start of this video, check the description below. And that's all I have to say about this entire video, and it was a lot of fun putting it together. Now, keep in mind, I'm on Instagram. I'm going to post a link in the description below if you want to follow me over there. We'll exchange some photos and have a good time. If this video has helped you out, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't done so, subscribe to the channel. It's called Real World. More often than not, I post videos about photography and technology, but you never know. So until the next video, take care of yourself and be safe.